Hi, you guys. So, this is a back in my day. So, I don't know if you guys had science fairs, but I've had at least three when I was in elementary school and or a couple in middle school. And I thought it was going to be like kind of what you see in, you know, some television shows where it's like, oh, you know, I built a volcano, or hey, here's a potato clock thing. Um, at least from what I had to do, you had to actually do you had to do an experiment. You had to list out everything, have the board, and I think with some of those you could still do it, but at least from like, of course, what you see on TV isn't always true, but it was, I felt difficult, at least when I did my first one. I was in third grade and not knowing really like what to do a project on, I was like really stressed out because I had no idea where to even begin. I was like, I'm like, what do I do a project on? And I'm like, it's due in like how many weeks? And, I've got to have procedures and a hypothesis and write up a conclusion and maybe have calculations, again, depending on what your experiment was. But I'm sitting here and I'm like, what am I supposed to do in an experiment? Like, what do I do? And I remember like Googling, I'm like, science fair ideas. And I felt like when I looked at these ideas, it helped me kind of like generate some of my own. I'm like, okay, what can I do with what I have at home? Because, like, my family, like, we weren't gonna go out and like buy new or certain materials that we were only gonna use once. It's one thing if we were going to use them again, but if we weren't going to use them like ever again, we weren't going to buy them. So I was like, okay, with some of these experiments, I'm like, what can I do that is like easily affordable and that I can easily do at home? Somehow, I don't know how I ended up on my idea, if like my parents helped me or if like I was looking at something, but we had these different like shaped glasses, and I finally was like, hey, why don't I do like water, like do the same amount of water and then see what shape of ice melts the fastest, because we had a circle, a square, and I think a triangle. And so, yeah, timed them, checked them each hour, did whatever, like, again, I can't remember everything I did with that project, but it ended up not being bad. Like, oh, my teacher was like, oh, good job. And I'm like, well, seeing as I'm in third grade, I shouldn't be, doing a like a scientist's, like, job. Um, but then moving on, when I moved, just in general, and then going into middle school, still had science fairs, and yeah, had to come up with a new project, and that one I know I didn't do well on. Uh, and it's just, I, I don't know if it's like, not the idea of, oh, you have this like project now that you have to do, and like the pressure it feels like you have. But I think it would have been nice, at least when I was in third grade, like, oh, here's some ideas. I just remember like when I was there, they were just like, yep, you're gonna have a science fair project. It's due in a few weeks. We learned how to do a hypothesis, the steps, conclusion, etc. And now you get to do that too. And I'm like, is that it? I'm like, you're not gonna like give us some examples or like, oh, because I need something at least for me, like, okay, what are you not expecting, but like for me, I will go above and beyond if I need to, but at the same time, I'm like, I'm in third grade. How much do you want from me? Because I'm not, I only know so much. So that's where I don't know if like schools still do that or if it's just like certain places do that, because I thought once I moved I was gonna be done with that. I was like, oh my god, I'm done with this, I don't have to worry about it anymore, I'm so happy. And then like right before I remember I'd have to move before we moved to Holman, I remember like, oh, science fair, and I'm like, really? Thought I was done with this. I thought I didn't have to worry about science fairs anymore. I'm like, I didn't have this for like a year. Like, there was a year gap, I remember. I'm like, why? Like, no more, please. It's too much stress. Like, I find, like, they are beneficial. I think they're really interesting, like, depending on the project. But, like, for me, I don't know, it was like very stressful to try and like find something with what I had readily available to me and what I could think with what I had. So, and that's just me. Like, I like science, but I know I don't have all the tools there. So, let me know your thoughts down below if you had to experience a science fair, if you got stressed like I did. Let me know, and feel free to like and subscribe if you want, and I will talk to you all later. Bye.